It is asserted that states cannot do business, and this is a new liberal philosophy which is widely believed across the world. And we can see that many intellectuals, even in developing developing world, also say that state are not supposed to do business and everything should be left at the mercy of market. And but there are other thinkers, on the other hand, who believe that a state can do business, and in reality they should do business. They claim that for doing business, the first important thing is to understand the cost of doing business. So if a state is doing business itself, then it might be provided land at very extremely discounted rate. It could be provided with energy and other sources at discounted rate. And then a state has the entire infrastructure, ranging from post office to railways, which in many cases under the control of the state. So it has a proper infrastructure that might help it to run the affairs of the economy. And they say that state can do business, and for that they say that we need to see the state that started doing business, whether they became successful or not. For instance, they cite the example of the USSR, which was an agrarian country where capitalism had not got firm roots in 1917, and according to some statistics, maybe 9% of the economy was dependent on industries. Some statistics suggest a higher percentage, but it is correct to say that it was not an industrialized country. And in 1917, these critics assert revolution took place in the Soviet Union, with the capitalist world slapping the communist country with sanction. The country also witnessed a civil war within no time, with the countries from the West coming to the support of the white forces. And because of that civil war and First World War, millions of Russians lost their lives. According to some statistics, around 10 million Russians lost their lives. And the agreement that Russia had to make with Germany also deprived it of economic opportunities, because a substantial part of its agriculture went to Germany, and also some part of industries as well. And besides, the Soviet Union also had to pay reparation or some amount to Germany. But despite all that, the country somehow started standing on its feet during the decade of 1930s. And during the Second World War, it was again devastated, with Hitler invading the Soviet Union under Operation Barbarossa. And during the Second World War, more than 70 million people lost their lives. Out of them, 27 million are said to be Russians or the Soviet citizen. Some statistics go to the extent of claiming 40 million people of the Soviet Union lost their lives, but a conservative estimate is 27 million. Besides, more than 34,000 industries of that country were also destroyed. And despite all that, they say, because of the planning and because of the socialist economy that was there in 1956, the first industrial country of the world was the United States, and the second was the Soviet Union. In addition to that, they point out that Soviet Union kept on supplying so many kept on helping other countries. Especially, it supported decolonization and liberation movement all over the world. It also supported revolution in Cuba, in Central and Eastern Europe, and also in other parts of the world. So it was the vitality of this economic system that helped Soviet Union to support different countries, including China, where 22,000 Soviet advisors were working in 1949, and they are believed to have helped Chinese with the first economic program. Similarly, they also cite the example of China, which was also devastated during the Second World War, and in fact, this devastation started during the decades of 1930s when Japan invaded the country, carrying out one of the worst massacres of modern history. Japan declared Manchuria as its own Australia, ruthlessly exploiting Chinese. And when Chinese Revolution took place, literacy was very low, life expectancy was almost 37. But between 1949 to early years of 1970s, or early decades, or the decade of early years of the 1970s, the average Chinese economic growth was 5%, despite the fact that the global community had slapped the communist country with so many sanctions. It made tremendous strides. Education was greatly improved, crossing beyond 50 or 60%. Life expectancy also rose to 67, in some cases even beyond that. Although after 1979, the Chinese economy grew by 9% something on average. So they cite these two examples, but on the other hand, you have right wing liberal thinkers or liberal economists who point out flaws in socialist economies, and holding it responsible for the demise of the Soviet Union. They said that there was no competition and it got stagnated because of the lack of competition. They even today cite an example that if you are given an option to go to South Korea or North Korea, which country would you prefer? And you would definitely, they claim, prefer South Korea because it is advanced. They cite the example of Western Europe, that Western Europe was also devastated during the Second World War, but with the help of Marshall Plan and because of the vitality of the capitalist system, it stood on its feet. Within no time, Japan, South Korea, and Western Europe greatly benefited by the generous aid and economic packages that were offered by the United States. And those countries that witnessed socialist economy, they really did not succeed. In modern times, they gave example of Venezuela, where economy is really in mess. But other factors that have to be taken into account, uh, many people try to ignore that. The critics would say, when we compare the economy of the Soviet Union with that of the United States, we need to take so many factors into account. Such critics point out that the history of modern socialism started with that of the communist revolution in the Soviet Union. The history of modern Soviet Union started with the revolution of 1917, that of the United States with the 1977 and 76. But during the more than 2 century history of the United States, its mainland was hardly attacked by any other country. But Soviet Union witnessed two terrible invasions within a span of 70 years. And they also claim that other factors should also be taken into account. For instance, Soviet Union lost more than 27 million people, and war experts believe that on average, in a war, if one person gets killed, then on average 5% get wounded, including those who suffer from post-traumatic effects. So in that case, they assert that more than 50 million people must have got injured during the Second World War in Soviet Union. More than 35,000 industrial units were destroyed. They pose a counter question that, on the contrary, hardly 400,000 or 500,000 people lost their lives in the UK, and more than 500 or 600,000 people may have lost their lives in the United States. Had an equal number of people lost their lives in the United States, would it have been in the same position as it was in the aftermath of the Second World War, contributing more than 40% to global GDP? So they try to say that if you want to see that whether state can do business, then you should try to see the example of Soviet Union and China. But capitalist thinkers also point out the tremendous strides that China made in the aftermath of Mao's death, uh, when the Chinese Communist Party decided to open market, and since then the average growth of China has been around 9% or even more than 9%. The country is now going to be a hub of technological advancement. It has already lifted more than 700 million people out of poverty. And capitalist thinkers would argue that it is all because of capitalism. They also cite the example of India, that has become a hub of vaccine and information technology and so many other sectors of the economy. And again, they would say that if you look at Indian economy prior to Manmohan Singh, then you would see that its speed was not as fast as it is now. And during the last 20 years, there have been times when its economic growth has been more than 5%, 6%, at times even 9% as well. So they say that the state cannot do business because the state does not know how to run economy, and wherever state run economy, that end up in disaster. But on the other hand, some anti-capitalist thinkers would argue that even in capitalist country, state has a big role to play. For instance, the modern 12 inventions are said to have been funded by the state, like supercomputer, GPS system, and smartphones. They are said that they were all in one way or another way were the creation of the state, or they were created with the help of the funding from the State Department. For instance, it is believed that GPS system and supercomputer and many other invention, they were all the gifts of Pentagon. And of course, Pentagon does not have its own money; rather, it's the public money that was used into it. So I have put forward the argument of both sides, and now it's up to you. You can do more research to come up with your own analysis or with your own conclusion.